28 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And we're on to the Utah State Aggies. This was a team that won the Mountain West Conference a season ago. And coming into this season, they do have a lot of talent coming back. I believe in previous videos I've stated that Logan Bonner is leaving the team. That was incorrect. Don't know where I got that idea. I apologize for the misinformation, but Logan Bonner's coming back, and they got a lot of key transfers coming in on both sides of the ball as well, even with how much they're losing in the wide receiver room. So can Utah State maybe surprise some people a little bit more this year and win the Mountain West for the second straight year? Or will this Utah State team have their struggles with a tougher non-conference schedule? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm predicting your favorite teams. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded, especially if you are a fan of the Utah State Aggies. Here in this video, this one goes out to you guys. You guys are going to know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something and you want to add something, leave it in the comment section down below. Be happy to hear what you guys have to say. So let's talk about Utah State in 2022. My fifth-ranked team in the Mountain West Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. You say, well, fifth? Well, why aren't they higher? This is the team that won the Mountain West last year. Well, they are losing some pieces that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But this team went 11-3 last year overall, 7-2 in the Mountain West. That does include the win against San Diego State in the Mountain West championship game. And this was a phenomenal team last year offensively. Had the second best offense in the Mountain West in terms of yards per game. Second best offense in terms of yards per game. Had 446 yards per game with 32 points per game. And they overall were one of the better offenses in this conference a season ago. Now, defensively, there's some work to be done. 391 yards per game with around 25 points per game. Now, that's still a solid stat, but they were in the bottom half of the Mountain West a season ago. Again, they're bringing in some transfers and things that we'll look at here in a little bit. And one thing, again, I want to say again before we get into players that are leaving and coming in, I believe in previous videos stated that Logan Bonner is gone. That is factually incorrect. I don't know where I got that idea. I feel like Andrew Peasley being gone off this team might have switched the two, so I apologize for that. Pretty dumb mistake in my opinion, but Logan Bonner is coming back on this team. We'll talk more about him later. But the quarterback that is leaving this team is Andrew Peasley. So Peasley, only 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on 51 pass attempts last year, so you do lose him. That is the quarterback that is leaving this team in 2022. Otherwise, when you look at elsewhere in the running back room, Elyon Noah is leaving this team, had 597 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you are losing your second leading rusher out of the running back room. But the wide receiver room is where this team really gets hit. So Devin Tompkins is going to be leaving. 1,704 yards and 10 touchdowns a season ago. But it doesn't stop there because Brandon Bowling is also gone, had 835 yards and 10 touchdowns a season ago. And Derek Wright had 789 yards and 11 touchdowns a season ago. You also lose a little bit of a depth piece in Savon Scarver, had 42 yards and a touchdown a season ago. And your fifth leading receiver, Carson Terrell, with 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, of course, Tompkins, Bowling, Wright, you lose your top 3 wide receivers, a depth guy in Scarver, and then Carson Terrell is your tight end that is leaving this team. Otherwise, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, Nick Henniger is a name that is leaving. Henninger, I believe is how you pronounce that. Nick Henninger is gone. 74 tackles, 8 sacks a season ago. The 8 sacks did lead the team. Marcus Moore, another name that's gone off the defensive line, had a sack and a half a season ago. Your leading tackler and linebacker, Justin Rice, is gone, had 124 tackles a season ago, 3 picks, which was tied for the team lead. Also, Cash Gilliam and Kevin Maitzenheimer, a couple other linebackers that are leaving this team. Gilliam was the top 5 tackler a season ago at 64 of them. And in the defensive back position, you lose Cam Lampkin and Shaq Bond. Shaq Bond had 3 picks a season ago, and Cam Lampkin 6 passes defended. So talent overall leaving this team, yes, there is a lot of talent leaving this team. But when we look at what's coming back, again, to re-clarify, Logan Bonner is coming back to this team. He is coming back. He will end up being that quarterback this year, and he was fantastic a season ago. 3,628 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Maybe cut back on the interception numbers a little bit, but Logan Bonner should surely be a great quarterback again for Utah State in 2022. When you look in the running back room, you do have your leading rusher, Calvin Tyler, coming back at 884 yards and 7 touchdowns, and John Gentry, who had 235 yards. Sadly, no touchdowns for him last year, but that should be your running back duo coming into 2022. In your wide receiver room, well, you do return Justin McGriff, had 414 yards and 6 touchdowns for this team a season ago, but you don't return anyone else who had over 100 yards. Well, enter 3 key pieces in the transfer portal. Xavier Williams figures to be an NFL-laden wide receiver. He is coming over to this team. Brian Cobbs coming over from Maryland. That's a good pickup there. And then Terrell Vaughn coming over from, I believe, a community college somewhere like that where he almost put up 1,000 yards receiving. So you're getting 3 pretty huge transfers in the wide receiver room. And all 3 of those guys, along with Justin McGriff, should still prove to have a solid wide receiver room. Don't know that it will prove to be as good as last year, especially when you lose a guy as talented as Devin Thompkins. But when you go ahead and take a look at that wide receiver room, that's still a good wide receiver room. Now, defensively, on the defensive line, a transfer coming in Daniel Griziak, otherwise defensive lineman Byron Vaughns, and Hale Motu Apuaka. I probably said that last name wrong. I apologize for mispronunciations. You're going to have that as your defensive line. Pretty good defensive line there. Linebackers, AJ Vongfakon coming back as a linebacker, and then MJ Tafisi is a transfer coming over, I believe, over from Washington. And then in the defensive back group, Hunter Reynolds, who was your second leading tackler last year at 84 of them. Johnny Carter, who also had a team lead with 3 interceptions a season ago. And then Gervin Hall is a transfer coming over to this team. So a lot of transfers coming in, a lot of key guys that I feel like are going to put up some pretty solid numbers for this team. If you want another transfer name, Levi Williams comes over from Wyoming. He's going to sit behind Logan Bonner and probably Cooper Legis in that quarterback room. But this is a Utah State team that is still ridden with talent. But when we take a look at the schedule, oh man, there are lots of games that jump out at you here. And I know there's one that jumps out at you right away. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you look at non-conference games, hey, they are one of the few teams that play in Week 0. They do have a home game against UConn. Also, a home game against Weber State, or Weber State, I believe is how it's pronounced. Weber, however you pronounce that college's name. I believe it's Weber, but could be wrong on that. Now, the 2 non-conference games that jump out at you, probably the 2 hardest games on this schedule for the Utah State Aggies. You got to go on the road in Bryant-Denny Stadium and play the Alabama Crimson Tide. Never an easy game, especially with how good Alabama is going to be projected this year. You also got a road game against BYU there as well. That team in Provo expected to be really good in 2022. When you look at conference play, home games against UNLV, Air Force, New Mexico State, and San Jose State, and then you got games on the road against Colorado State, Wyoming, Hawaii, and Boise State. So let's kind of dive on into the schedule a little bit more, shall we? So UConn, they're seemingly starting to get better, but that should still be a win for the Utah State Aggies. Same thing with Weber State. Now, when you take a look at those other 2 non-conference games, it's going to be tough for Utah State to win any one of those 2 non-conference games. I mean, you got that road game against Bama. Bama projects to be one of, if not the best team in the nation coming into 2022. Not going to be an easy game to win by any stretch. And then a road game against, BYU in Provo, Utah. That is going to be a very interesting game to watch there as well. That team in Provo, one of the leading teams in returning production after having a marvelous season a season ago. They do have some hard games on the schedule, and this is one of them. Utah State can compete in this game, but on the road in Provo, yeah, going to be a pretty tough one to win. And then when you get into Mountain West play, well, you have some games that you should probably win, like New Mexico. Hey, you get them at home. UNLV, hey, you get them at home. Probably the 2 bottom teams in the Mountain West Conference. Hawaii, even on the road with how much that team is losing, might take a couple years for them to rebuild up. Wyoming on the road, though, that's going to be a tricky game. Same thing with Colorado State on the road. Colorado State improves a lot. Wyoming pulls off upsets every year in the Mountain West Conference. This very well could be the game or a game a game of many that Wyoming is able to pull off an upset in. However, I feel like your true challenges in Mountain West play, of course, that road game against Colorado State, as I've mentioned, San Jose State. That could be an interesting game. And then you got games against some more top 5 teams, because notice they don't have a video on my channel yet. Air Force, but Utah State gets that game at home. And then you got to go on the road at the end of the year to play Boise State. Very well could prove to be which of those two teams goes and plays for a conference championship. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. I don't think this team is going to have much luck on the road in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Games in orange, I still don't think you're going to win, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. That game on the road against BYU in Provo, a game in orange. Games in yellow, your 50-50 high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for the team on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I have you winning. So Weber State should be a win there. I'm going to go ahead and say that UConn probably should be a win there as well. Same thing with UNLV and New Mexico and Hawaii. I feel like those should be 4 wins, including the Weber State game, 5 wins. So one more win for bowl eligibility. Could very well come against Wyoming again. I'm not high on this Wyoming team. I don't think they're going to be that great this year, especially after all they've lost last year. But it's a Wyoming program that is known to pull off some surprising results. This very well could be one that I'm overlooking, and I think a lot of other people may be overlooking as well, where Wyoming may be able to beat Utah State here. Otherwise, when you look elsewhere in conference play, lots of games in yellow. So that home game against Air Force is interesting. Look, Air Force has a lot coming back on this team. Hazik Daniels comes back. Brad Roberts comes back. There's a lot of defensive talent coming back for this team as well. So Air Force is going to be a tricky team to play, and they're not going to be a team to take lightly in Mountain West play either. And that's a team that can push for a spot in the conference championship game there as well. And some hard games on that Air Force schedule too. So they're going to be tested coming into this game. I think that's going to be a very, very fun game to watch. Also, you got that road game against Colorado State, bringing in Jay Norvell over from Nevada. That's a Colorado State team that is expected to have some major improvement from a season ago. San Jose State, after a breakout 2020, they were a little bit disappointing in 2021, but that's a San Jose State team that is getting some solid pieces in, including Siobhan Cordero, the old Hawaii quarterback, that I think if he can fix some things is a 3,000-yard passer. And San Jose State has a lot of really good skill players going for it. So San Jose State, I think that's a dangerous team, even though Utah State gets them at home. I'm leaning towards the Aggies there in that one. But hey, you never know. I think San Jose State can be a little bit of a surprise this year. And then you got that road game at the end of the year against Boise State. And if Utah State is able to get past Air Force and able to get all the way down to that Boise State game, or hey, maybe even if they drop one game in Mountain West play, that game at the end of the year against the Broncos could very well end up deciding who plays for a conference title. But when I look at this Utah State team, I like what they have. I love Logan Bonner as a quarterback, and all that's been talked about his offseason is his accuracy, how good his accuracy is. Calvin Tyler, you have that leading rusher come back. Yes, you lose a lot of wide receiver talent, but a lot of transfer pieces coming in. The defense looks pretty good there as well. Now, will the defense make some improvements this year? I think so. I think there's a little bit of a step up on the defensive end. But the tough non-conference games for me is why I have this team landing at 8-4. I think they're going to fare pretty well in Mountain West play, maybe drop a game or two. But those games on the road against Bama and BYU are why I have this team at 8-4. Now, 8-4, very good record for this team, and I could see this team having as good of a record as 10-2. Maybe they pull off the upset against BYU. Maybe, hey, they go undefeated in Mountain West play en route into a conference championship game. Who knows? I like this Utah State team. I like Logan Bonner. I like Blake Anderson. I like what he has working for the Aggie program. So that's going to do it for my talk about the Aggies. Be sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, anything like that. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.